Hey there everyone! Before we get started today, here's a quick message from this video's sponsor. Are you a game designer who's swamped with spreadsheets, text documents, and diagrams? Are you worried about your players getting angry at you on Twitter because you didn't guess how they'd play your level? Do you want your game design to rely on science instead of petty guesswork? Then Machinations is the game balancing platform for you! Machinations can help you streamline your work in so many ways so that you can focus on the creative aspects of game design that you really love. Using Machinations can save you up to 90% in balancing and iteration time, and it'll allow you to run simulations to balance your game's parameters. You can work solo or with friends thanks to live collaborative editing features that work just like Google Docs. Suffering from blank canvas syndrome? Machinations has hundreds of ready-built templates to help you get started. Does all this sound like it could make your life easier? Try it out today by heading to the link in the description and start designing your very own Machinations. For now though, on to the video. Scupper Lake is a compound in the top right corner of Hunt Showdown's original map, Stillwater Bayou. Despite the fact that Hunt's maps are known for their versatile design and amazing depth, Scupper Lake became infamous within the game's player base for being a compound that nobody wanted to fight in. Eventually, it even got to the point that if players heard that a fight was happening there, or discovered that the boss was at Scupper, a lot of the time they would extract and leave the mission, rather than play out the match. The story of this compound took a new turn though, when with update 1.7, Crytek made changes to their old maps. When it came to Scupper Lake, the lead designer and lead level designer for the game even joked on their dev stream about how wrong they had gone with its design, and what they wanted to do to change it. Honestly, after a little more than a month with these changes, I would love to tell you that the updates they made fixed this compound completely. Apart from making slight improvements to the areas in and around it, and making it generally more bearable than it was, the changes haven't really made a difference to the way the compound is being played, and that to me signals that there are larger design flaws in the mix. So, when we break down this compound's level design, what went wrong with Scupper Lake? Storytelling is a bit of an umbrella term that can be used to describe the environment art, theme, and atmosphere of a level. As you might guess, all of these things are super important, but in multiplayer design, they're definitely less of a priority because a level is used to facilitate play, not unfold a narrative. Storytelling is what brings a level to life, but having just mentioned that there's no larger narrative to convey here, we can consider that multiplayer environmental storytelling can be much more grounded in telling you a story about a particular place rather than a game at large. In Hunt, the storytelling of each compound communicates to the player what it is. So when you run around the prison or the quarry in DeSalle, for example, and you see grunts that are wearing certain costumes that are specific to that location, you know what that area used to be. Another example might be when you run around Upper DeSalle and you see a well-to-do town that's buildings communicate its priorities. The centerpiece of the level is this bank, which functions as a boss arena, with all the other buildings pointing in toward it. This tells us that before the darkness overwhelmed the world, Upper DeSalle was a place that revolved around its money, separating itself from its working-class saloon counterpart across the river. Essentially, that's what storytelling in multiplayer is all about. What story does a level tell you without communicating it to you directly? In Scupper Lake, the storytelling is fantastic. Too fantastic, actually. The entire compound tells you a story of a small cluster of homes that have been reclaimed by the swamp they reside in. Water from the bayou has slowly quenched its thirst by flooding houses, buildings, and anything it can get a hold of. As demonic darkness has covered Louisiana and the undead monsters that fill the game, Scupper Lake has taken its chance to make this an area that's inhospitable for human life. So, all this sounds clearly communicated and beautifully composed, so why is it a flaw? Well, in multiplayer design especially, you never want the storytelling of a level to interfere with the player on a mechanical basis, and that's exactly what Scupper Lake does. This all comes down to the major environmental device of the level: water. In Hunt, walking or running through water is a disadvantageous decision. It's loud, it's slow, and it makes you an easy target for an enemy team. Water is something to be avoided at all costs, then, especially in a gunfight. So for an entire boss arena and compound where fighting is likely to happen, it's the last thing you want to be surrounded by. The problem with Scupper, which to their credit Crytek did improve on with their 1.7 changes, is that to go anywhere in, around, or through, you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage because you're gonna have to wade through some deep water. Pathing is the design of routes through which players can traverse a level. In multiplayer, this is a super important aspect of design because it gives your players designated routes to go everywhere, really. You'll recognize this too if you've played multiplayer games before. It's like when you spawn in for the first time or the 50th time and you recognize where you are and you can see your path to combat. Sightlines, when done well, are an integrated part of pathing. When done poorly, they can dissuade players from entering combat, inspire camping, or even make players feel lost. Good pathing and sightlines in a multiplayer level allow for accessibility, repetition, improvement, but they also allow for options for creativity, and they put either attackers or defenders at an advantage. Ideally, these paths will also lead to opposing teams into conflict with one another. But in good old Scupper Lake, no matter which route you take, you're gonna struggle to find the combat you're looking for without barriers being in the way. The pathing in Scupper Lake is strange because sightlines are integrated into spaces that players just don't use. Usually this results in players not really being sure of where to fight, and wherever they eventually do choose, they end up putting themselves at a tactical disadvantage. Now, don't get me wrong, not all maps need to have equal grounding for defenders or attackers, and that's something that so many other compounds in Hunt get right. I think the main thing with that is putting either side at an advantage. Scupper, though, is in a league of its own because it actively puts everyone playing there at a disadvantage. For attackers on approach, you have to expose yourself in a vastly open area surrounded by water from the south. From the west, you alert defenders to your arrival thanks to numerous noise traps en route to any strategic advantage. From the north, you have no sightline into the compound thanks to all these trees until you get dangerously close. And from the east, you have hard to navigate marshland where you have no useful sightlines if you aren't carrying a scoped weapon. Things don't get much better when you're in the compound proper either, because to push the boss arena you will at some point make noise that will alert your enemy, or you'll get stuck wading through deep water. As a defender, you'll close yourself off in a claustrophobic boss arena with very limited peak spots and rotations. Most of these windows don't even allow you comfortable sightlines to where enemies regularly are either, which means if you do peek, you're most likely exposing yourself for no good reason. In this central building itself, you're also going in and out of water on a moment-to-moment basis, which makes it hard to hear attackers coming. When you actively put all players at a disadvantage like this, you get multiplayer level cancer, also known as stalemate gameplay, where no one wants to engage in a fight and patience ultimately wins out rather than skill. Ideally with multiplayer level design, you want to aim for what's called the ultimate vanilla. Vanilla is beautiful simplicity. It offends no one, everyone can bring their personal flavors to it and it still works, and at its core, it's the simplest concept of ice cream. Think of the very best multiplayer levels you've played. Actually, hold on. This is the part of the video where people get mad at me for forgetting what their favorite level is, even though I've never met you. You never told me what your favorite level is. How am I supposed to know? Huh? So just hold your favorite level in your mind, okay? Think about it. I bet you that your favorite is designed around a simplistic concept that allows for both attackers and defenders. I bet it has enough storytelling to communicate what it is, but not too much that it gets in the way of play. And I bet you that new players and veterans alike can enjoy it to the same extent. Lastly, I'd wager that your favorites allow all the players to focus on core skills and mechanics that are relevant to that game. Holy Grail multiplayer levels are based in all of these things. Weigh all of these design elements up, and you can grade a level's complexity. Scupper Lake has an extremely high level of complexity within Hunt Showdown, especially when you take this game's PvE elements into account. There are your usual grunts, there are meatheads in the few places available for attackers to push from, there are water devils in the surrounding areas, there are hives stationed on the roofs, and once again that pesky water means that no one can escape these things quickly or effectively hear what's going on. The reason this high complexity is a bad thing is because for new players, they are going to be intimidated by the level as soon as they get too deep to realize what's surrounding them. This compound offers no way to recover from mistakes. It offers no way to learn the game's mechanics and practice them in a setting that's specific to other compounds. All that water dissuades you from exploration as well, which in turn means it'll take longer for new players to gain map knowledge. For experienced players who have mastered the game's core mechanics, this area allows them no way to showcase their skills that they learn elsewhere. It doesn't allow for strategic variety with loadouts or creativity with team movement. In short, you play one match here, you've played them all. There's no emergent gameplay at Scupper Lake. It allows for a game of patience and not much else. So after assessing these 3 major shortcomings in Scupper Lake's level design, we can see why it gets such a bad rap from the game's community. Although the 1.7 changes did help the compound's pathing and took some of that annoying water away, it's still being played in a way that will cause more annoyance than joy. I do want to give Crytek credit for trying to improve this level though, because that's not something that's seen in other games, and it shows you how dedicated they are to communicate with their game's community. It's strange to me that Scupper Lake shows these glaring errors, because the level design in the rest of this game is so strong. I can only imagine that Scupper Lake is the result of an early Hunt team's plan to make the game challenging and unforgiving at every turn. I'd say that ultimately you can make multiplayer levels challenging, but they have to get the basic priorities of level design correct first and foremost, and they should never let their ambition to be challenging make them unplayable.
A bullet in a dream.
Thank you so much for watching! If you liked this video, please give it the old thumbs up, and remember to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to catch more of our videos coming soon. Alright, you can tell me now, what is your favourite multiplayer map? Comment down below and let me know. That would really help us out with YouTube algorithm nonsense. Thanks again to this video's sponsor, Machinations. I hope to work with you guys more in the future. Thanks again so much for watching, everyone, and I wish you all the best for the new year. Tune in next time!